How's the campground business?
It's good. A little bit slow this time of year, but
You could use the break.
it's picking up, yeah. Yeah.
Did what do they call it, visiting nurses, is that still a deal? Is that still a thing?
Most of the people in there are visiting nurses.
Really?
Yeah, it's still coming through.
My mother-in-law went through a spell a couple of years ago, and it was amazing to me.
Yeah, how.
Well, nobody was from Maine. I mean,
Yeah.
forget Lewiston or Iowa, they were Arizona,
Yep.
Philippines, Europe, wherever it may have been.
You're on.
We're on, so I'll quit talking. Okay, so welcome to the November 5th regular meeting of the planning board. And so we will go through roll call and determination of the quorum. There's 5 of us, so we have a quorum. We are good to go. Would you rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So number 3, amendments to the agenda. Does anybody have an amendment to the agenda besides me? Okay, so, I cannot serve as the chair after I'm sworn in. So I've not yet been sworn in. There's 2 things that make you selectman besides good looks and charm. And the one is certification election, which Jessica has done. Second one is being sworn in, which will happen tomorrow for me. So, but basically, after tonight, I can't be the chair anymore. So I would like to add, if you all are ready, at the end of the meeting, an election of chair.
So moved.
It's been moved and second? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adding an election of the chair at the end of the agenda, please raise a hand. And it is done. And then give you plenty of time to think who you're gonna vote for. Okay, so amendments to the agenda is done. Amendment, the acceptance of meeting minutes, we have 2. October 1, our regular meeting, October 22, which was the land use ordinance changes that are being proposed. Do I have any comments on either one or both? And George, can we approve them both together?
I would move we accept October 1st and the 22nd as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any other discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve, unanimous, it is done. We're on to number 5, informational exchange on non-agenda items. Mr. Thavars, the town planner, we will start with you.
Okay, and I did include my monthly report to the town manager in your packet to give an update on what activities I've been involved in.
Okay, did you want to highlight any, or
Nope.
does anybody have any questions on George's? He is so happy to be getting rid of me, he's moving this through. Anybody have any questions or comments on George's well-done planner's report?
I'd just like to compliment George on how thorough he is for those. Greatly appreciate it.
Do I have a second on that? We don't need a vote. I would agree, and thank you, George, so. Okay, so we're past any other town officials, I haven't seen any. Any comments for residents who are not here for a particular application? Seeing none, we'll move on to non-residents who are not here for any of the applications on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move on to continuing business, which is request for final site plan approval for the expansion of the leisure campground for 40 RV sites, map 2, lot 13, public comment will not be taken. So George, do you want to get us started? If the 2 folks would come on up to the table,
And can I just say that I'm gonna recuse myself from this application just because I'm a neighbor.
All right.
You can stay there though.
I'll stay here, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. Mr. Tavares, did you want to kick us off?
Yes, I'll just summarize why the applicants are here tonight. They received a conditional use approval for the campground expansion back in September of 2023. They followed that with the site plan application and you gave them a preliminary approval in February of 2024. Did I say 2023 on that one?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Okay, and they received conditions of approval that required them to bring back to you the state permits for the engineering of this, of the wastewater system as well as the stormwater permit. And so they have acquired those permits and have submitted them with the packet, and they've updated the site plan as also indicated in those conditions of approval. The last one was that they worked with the fire chief on the numbering of the sites within the campground for public safety purposes, and they've indicated that they are working with the fire chief.
Excellent. Okay, so reminder, this is final approval, so we've gone through all the nitty-gritty about the layout and all that other stuff. They've gotten their final state approvals. So do we have any other questions or comments about the final site plan? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Before we get there, I do have one question on state approval on the wastewater treatment. Has that all been implemented, all installed?
No.
Okay.
No. We can't do any of that stuff until we get approval.
So this is the step before
This
you
is
can
the
start
step
working.
before we go yay and we shovel.
And where do we stand with the discussions with the fire chief on the numbering?
He said that, I discussed with him, did anybody talk to the fire chief at all? No? Yeah, he said that, I have numbering for that, but, it's going to the map guy, and we don't have it yet from the map guy, so I didn't wanna start with that, so we're just waiting for that at this point in time.
And that guy is
Codes.
No, the map guy is my map guy for the,
your engineer.
it's the actual map guy that makes maps for the campground.
Oh, okay.
I had one here to show you in case, but I didn't want to print it out with funny looking numbers on it, so I didn't.
So has chief seen this, fire chief,
He came over and walked with it.
and he's okay with it?
Yep.
Does that answer the question?
It does.
Right, yeah. So this is basically what we have. So after we finished one of the last meetings, we did preliminary sketches of the campground, and now we're gonna color them to show different areas of it in case they have 911 issues and stuff like that, but right from that, so going back and forth, so.
Would you pass that on to Mr. Tavares if we need it for enough? Also, I started too quickly, would you introduce yourselves?
What do you like?
Okay,
I'm Ken Hewitt from 24 Utility.
okay. So are there any other questions about the,
What, if final approval is granted, when do you anticipate that you'd be able to break ground on the waste treatment?
I would probably do stormwater permit first, because that's more of a thing for the campground existing now. But yeah, as soon as I can get somebody to do it, I'd like to get something in, within the next couple months before the ground freezes, but I don't really see that happening. It'll probably be springtime.
Okay.
And then construction wise, I'm not gonna be doing construction all summer long and killing my whole business to do construction, so it's gonna be a lengthy process. It's not gonna be like a bang bang and it's done in a month,
Right.
So it's probably gonna be a couple of years going through this. So just so you're aware that both permits are regulated by the state, so the state, the engineers have to go back through and approve the wastewater permit, they have to submit their approvals to the state for us to be able to write off, for the state to write off on the, my engineer has to write off on the project, all projects. So it doesn't fall on the town to inspect these things, which they're more than welcome to come out and do his inspections, but my engineer is supposed to do the inspections as well.
and the
after that,
state
so-
put that into your approvals, as I recall, right?
Yeah.
I know that you have to pay the guy to do it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve their final plan as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you approve the final plan. Oh, she's abstaining. 4 approved, 1 abstention, George.
Perfect. I
So,
appreciate it, guys.
well, thank you,
Thank
thanks for your
you.
patience,
Yeah.
good luck to you.
Good luck with your new venture you got there.
Well, thank you,
Thanks, guys.
come visit us there. Okay, I think, the next, so we're on to the new business, right?
Thank you, George.
You're welcome. So that took care of the campground new business, request for sketch plan review and proposed 14-lot cluster subdivision at 439 Quaker Meeting House Road, map 2, lot 60. Public comment will not be taken. Okay, so, please come up, who's ever representing the owner or the owner. And your name and address and your relationship to the project.
Sure, my name's Joe Martin, I'm a civil engineer with Sightlines in Brunswick, I'll give you the address Sightlines, 118 Carrington Road, Brunswick, Maine. And I'm here representing the,
Okay. So George, if you want to give us a quick intro, and then I will have Mr. Martin add anything he'd like to add to the discussion.
Yes, I'll summarize the agenda notes, which indicate that this project is proposed to be a cluster subdivision. Based on the packet information, there's a 94 acres is going to be used for the development. About 17 acres will be retained by the current owner. And I did describe in the agenda notes with a diagram the basic lay of the land, which is a height of land in the northeast corner. And then from that high point, it appears to all drain down either toward a tributary to Norton Brook or a large wetland system on the CMP power line. They've submitted lots of site information, all that's called for and more in the sketch plan submittal requirements. The basic project layout is a 1,500-foot dead-end road with 12 cluster lots, and they're also proposing a larger conventional lot out of the project entrance, as well as a retained lot at the end, which would also not be a cluster lot. I did indicate that end lot, as well as the land by the rear of the property to be retained by the owner, do not appear to have the legally required road frontage, as well as questioning whether or not the proposed easement on one of the lots constitutes the required designation of open space under the land use ordinance. So I did suggest that the applicants perhaps consult with an attorney to kind of look at those technical issues. There are different arguments, and I know different code officers have interpreted the road frontage on a turnaround, so that may be part of their thinking, but it'd be good to get that kind of at least on the table at the sketch plan stage, so that they know what to expect when they come before you with a formal application. I also pointed out that there is on the town's GIS inventories indication, and it was also noted in the soil report that there are farm soils, and under state law as well as our local ordinance, those have to be mapped as part of the subdivision submissions. However, I did point out that under either state law or local ordinances, it doesn't really tell you what you do with it once you get the mapping. But one thing it can do is give indication of support for proposed open space. So, because they would be preserving those natural resources. And that can factor into your decision on whether to grant cluster approval or not. I did also point out that my analysis indicated that this is going to come very close proximity to the abutting subdivision with Collins Way, which comes to their property line, the adjoining property line. And under the ordinance, the planning board is required to look at interconnections of future existing street networks and future properties, so that would seem to be a logical one to discuss. And then I went through basically the process of review in terms of the 3 phases of the subdivision review process, starting with where you are tonight with sketch plan process to discuss generally their approach to the project, the site in terms of whether cluster is the appropriate way to approach this property, and also clarifying that no approvals are manifested at this point. But then they will come before you with a full preliminary plan application, which will go through a review of the subdivision criteria and standards, and make a preliminary determination that the project as designed would be able to meet those standards. And with that preliminary approval, they can then with confidence apply for state permits, and they've indicated in their submissions what state permits will be required. And then, assuming they get their state approvals, they come back for the final plan approval, and the focus of that stage is making sure that all of the legal documents, the peer review of the engineering, to make sure everything is in order for actual construction, as well as determining what the estimated cost of the construction is gonna be, and posting appropriate performance guarantees to guarantee that it gets carried out according to the approved plans. So that's basically the process. Again, they're asking for a cluster approval with 50% reduction in most of the lots, areas, and reduction in the road frontages. And sketch plan is also an opportunity to discuss whether they anticipate applying for any waivers. And again, you cannot give any approvals for waivers at this point, but you can at least discuss it and see whether or not you would be open on that note or not to consideration of it. And then finally, as Juliet appropriately pointed out on the Greystone subdivision, which I missed, at cluster, whenever you do a cluster subdivision, the sidewalk does take place at the cluster and not preliminary plan stage. And it makes sense because you wanna, if you're gonna give a cluster approval, you wanna make sure that that's the appropriate way to approach it, so you would need to schedule a sidewalk if the project goes forward. And I think that covers all my notes.
Okay, would you like to add anything?
Sure, I have a quick PowerPoint presentation. I won't
I've been up for it.
bore you guys too much. For the next slide.
I'll give it to you in just a
Oh.
second and take it home.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see okay?
I should, if you're asking me.
Can you see okay?
Okay. All right, so just a quick rundown of the project team we have assembled for this project thus far. So StoneX Construction is the applicant, Sightlines is the civil engineer and surveyor for the project. We have completed the boundary survey for the project or for the property, I would say. And then Mainly Soils is the wetland biologist and will be the person who gets the septic test pits completed for the individual lots. Quick rundown of the review process. So as George pointed out, the review process with the town is a three-stage, minimum three meeting process. For DEP, this project does not trigger a stormwater management law permit or a site law permit. It does, because it results in more than an acre of disturbance, it will require stormwater PBR. There are a number of wetlands that will be impacted. I think right now, we haven't obviously done the grading yet, but it's gonna be between 7,000 and 10,000 square feet of wetland impacts. So that will require a tier 1 permit from the DEP. And then something kind of new from DEP is before construction gets started, we'll have to get a main construction general permit from DEP as well. And then lastly, with the Army Corps of Engineers, because of the wetland impacts and the tree clearing associated with those, this will require a general permit from them as well. They just issued their new regional general permits Friday. I've read through them, I'm still trying to absorb exactly what those entail, but I do know for sure that this will require a general permit from them.
Can we ask questions as you?
Sure, absolutely.
You had mentioned about tree clearing requirements. Can you expand on that?
So the reason that trips into the Army Corps is if you are impacting wetlands and you're clearing trees that are over 4 inches in diameter, 3 inches in diameter, you need to get a consultation with the
Fish and Wildlife.
US Fish and Wildlife Service, because this area is part of the northern long-eared bat habitat. So what they do is they check to see if there's potential for impacts to those habitat, the bats, sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, hey, you can't clear between this time and this time, and you have to clear outside of their, yes. Sometimes depending how much you're clearing, they won't put that in, but recently, they've been almost every project kind of having those clearing restriction windows. And that goes for the roadway and for the future lots, if they're sold at a later time, you know, if they're not developed for a couple of years, that clearing window timeline still goes with that, so you're still held to a certain timeline. Usually it's kind of the winter, spring season where you want to clear, not kind of the summertime period.
Thank you.
So, project summary, it's in the rural residential agricultural zoning district. So the property right now is utilized as a single-family residence. It's kind of located right up on the high point of the property, and it kind of falls away, from that high point down to some wetlands and eventually to a stream. It's mostly wooded scrub brush, type of growth, up near where the house is. There is some lawn meadow areas, but for all intents and purposes, it's undeveloped and wooded. So the project, as George knows, is gonna be 1,500 linear feet of new roadway, 14 single-family lots. There is going to be about 17 acres retained by the current owner when it's transferred to the applicant. And then, we are providing open space in accordance with the cluster, subdivision requirements. Of course, we will need private wells, individual septic systems, underground power will be extended. And then in accordance with the Durham ordinance, we will be implementing a new stormwater system consisting mostly probably of detention basins to control the peak runoff coming off. Maybe we can answer this here or maybe later. I did have some questions on exactly what the stormwater requirements were from the town. Just the language in the ordinance is a little bit different from some other towns, so curious about that.
I'm sorry, sure, Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a question about that last slide. So if we have land to be retained outside of the proposed cluster, is that property taken out of the equation?
Yeah, it's not,
And we're just looking at we're just gonna look at the acreage that you're proposing for the cluster subdivision?
yes, yeah. So the entire property is, I think, 94 acres, so whatever that is, minus 17 acres, that's kind of the culvert project site. So there is an exemption for subdivision law for land that is retained by an owner. There is some restrictions to that. I think if they try to sell that land within, maybe 5 years, then that land would kind of revert to become part of the subdivision. It's kind of weird loophole, I don't know exactly what happened in that instance, but. So this is an aerial, Quaker Meeting House Road is over here, Hickman Brook Road is here, Collins Way wraps right there. There is a CMP right of way or corridor that goes right north of the property as well. So this is kind of the entire property here. You can see it's mostly wooded. There is a stream down here that runs off site. There are some areas, as I noted, of like kind of scrub brush areas, but most of this area is wooded, and then the house is kind of up in this area. There you go. So this is the conceptual subdivision plan. Quaker Meeting House Road is over here. There's that CMP corridor that I talked about. And here's the brook down here. So north on this page is kind of this way. So it's kind of been shifted just for ease of layout. So the project is an extension of a new road, number of lots. All this cross-hatched area is wetlands. You see kind of fingers coming up through where the new road's gonna be. These areas that are darker hatched are steep slopes. We try to minimize the steep slopes that are within the lots. We can see there's some located in lot 10 and in lot 7, but this large section of steep slope is primarily located in the open space. What else from this? And I'll point out here too, this is where the existing house is here. They have an existing driveway that leads back to Quaker Meeting House Road, so that will just be abandoned once the subdivision is approved. There are two lots that are a little bit larger in size than typical for cluster. One is lot 1. The main reason for that is it's mostly comprised of, the reason it's larger is the, I say leftover land is comprised of that larger wetland area. And one of the things we were trying to meet with the cluster requirements was 40,000 square feet of contiguous area. So once I started to figure that out and chop it off, it got to a point where it just made sense just to include all that area in the long one.
Where's the house gonna go there, you think?
This, I'll show you on the next slide actually.
Okay.
Jump ahead here.
For you, well, you can, I'll see if, you just wanna talk about the connection to,
Yep.
is it Connell?
Yeah, I'll go back to this in just a second. So the house will be over here with the 50-foot setback from this wetland coming in on both sides. I mean, it'd be a postage stamp buildable area there,
Right,
so.
right, right.
One of the things not shown, I was looking at the ordinance actually, and I think this does apply here, that there will be a requirement for a 50-foot buffer along Quaker Meeting House Road. But even with that buffer, we can locate a single family residence right there. Back to this one, so this is Holmes Way. It does not extend to the end of the road here.
Nor does the easement extend?
It is part of this lot. I can't tell you what lot number it was, but.
It's okay.
So, I mean, theoretically, we could extend a right of way up to there, future right of way. To connect that in the future, you have to get the permission of obviously that landowner and probably the subdivision as a whole. Personally, I think likelihood of that is pretty low. People love living at the end of dead end roads. And I don't know if they would grant an easement, but it's something we can discuss today.
And that also on your side of the property or the project, that's wetlands, right?
Yeah, yeah. And our wetland just only delineated up to there, so I don't know if this wetland goes off here or not, but they stopped at the property line, so.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yeah.
One, the easement that George brought up earlier, where is that here?
So there's 2 easements. So the land we retained by the owners here, we have a 50-foot easement sitting back there, which we would hope that this would qualify as a back lot. We'll discuss that further.
Okay,
The other easement is the open space easement. So lot 13 is comprised of this, I'll call it buildable area here, and the remainder of the open space. So the open space itself is in an easement that will be held by the HOA, and I don't know if the town is typically a holder of the open space as well, but it would be held in the easement.
okay.
Could you say,
Go ahead.
could you say that again about, so there's lot 13, what
Lot 13,
does it consist of?
it consists of this buildable area here, and then you see this line
Gotcha,
right
that's
here.
lot line.
That's the open space easement. It's not a lot line, it's just an easement line. So lot 13 comprises all of this,
Alright,
but majority of lot 13 is under an open space easement.
So where would the cluster open space be? Your proposed?
Yeah, it would be all coming up here, and then all of this area. That would all be the open space.
Right, but is that
Part of
also a lot?
13?
It's part of a lot that we.
It's an easement. So it's an easement, the open space is comprised of an easement.
And that's where the legal question comes in.
Okay,
Does that constitute open space?
yeah, let's talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my other question was resource protection for the town?
Yep.
Is that on here?
Yes, so there's the 100-foot stream setback here for this, I think it's Millbrook there. That is part of the resource protection. And then there's a inland waterfowl and wading bird habitat that just creeps into the site here,
Got it.
and that would also be part of the resource protection. This stream here is not a perennial stream, it's an intermittent stream. So that would not be, and again with this one over here, that one's an intermittent stream, so that would not be part of the resource protection.
Okay. And then wetlands, just, so you've got state wetlands
Yes,
of
these are all,
significance?
these are all state wetlands, these are, majority of the wetlands here are forested wetlands.
Okay,
The wetlands that would be of significance would be wetlands within 25 feet of the stream, whether that be the perennial stream or the intermittent stream.
okay,
And then the wetlands within the water fountain.
got it. So these wetlands here and those wetlands over there,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay. And then Army Corps wetlands, you're thinking all of it?
Yep, all this would meet the definition of Army Corps
Thank you
wetlands.
so much.
Yep.
If I may, what's the advantage of having lot 13 own all that open space?
The advantage is we run up to some limits with state subdivision law and site location law of the number of lots that you can have. They consider an open space if it's part of its own lot as a lot that's sold, quote unquote. So if you had open space as its own individual lot, then the number of lots you could have before you meet that threshold for site law would be reduced by one. So, and every time's a little bit different. We have had some municipalities that are fine with the open space being an easement because it's protected, whether it's on its own property or it's on easement, it's protected, it's deed protected, you know, it can't be altered without further discussion with the town. And some towns clearly lay out in their ordinance that, no, it has to be its own separate piece.
I guess because we've had 13 lot subdivisions, Bowie Hill and some others, where there has been separate Deer Creek open space, not part of a lot easement. Correct me if I'm wrong. How did we get around that? How did that? You weren't the
It was
engineer.
13, with the open space, that would get to 14, so that'd be less than 15.
But we have, I think in Deer Creek, aren't there lots of little splotches of,
Talk to a lawyer,
what's that?
talk to a lawyer.
I would say that there has been a number of subdivisions, I don't know specifically what you're talking about, that have been approved that would meet the definition of the site law requirements. In terms of like, so let's say lot 1 was an open space lot, and we had this as an open space. DEP would consider that 2 lots, 2 separate lots that would count towards your 15 lot threshold. So we had a subdivision that had something like that, and we ended up having to connect the open spaces by like a sliver, a 10-foot sliver that wrapped around the thing, so it would be one lot. It's a silly thing, but it's the way it goes around. So the other alternative is, the other reason you may be able to do it if the entire property is 30 acres or less, and site law does not come into effect for that. So if it's a more compact lot, I don't know if that would be the case. And the other thing is that if your open space is held by a designated third party, like a conservation group, Brunswick Thompson Area Reuse, Brunswick Thompson Land Trust, if they own it, then it gets absolved out of that and it doesn't count as a lot. So there's a bunch of exemptions and ways around it to eliminate the open space as from being a law.
But that's per state, right?
That's per
So we
state.
also have our own internal cluster open space requirements.
Yes.
That's what we're
Yep,
gonna have to
yep.
figure out, like,
So
How
he was kind of asking like,
yeah,
what's the benefit of it, and that's kind of the benefit of it, you know.
sorry.
From regardless of the ownership of it, I believe it has been designed to meet the standards. It meets the 50% of it is non-wetlands, and it can't remember the exact number of that is percentage. It's 50.
Is it on here?
Yeah, so per the requirement, the 50% of the total lot area is 38.4, and we're proposing 45.4. So we meet that requirement, and then more than 50% of the open space is non-wetlands, which is the requirements we were, trying to hit.
If I may. With the lack of 150 feet of the continuous legal road frontage that is identified for lot 13 and also the remaining owner retaining the 17.44, how can we satisfy that? Can we satisfy it by increasing the distance of the road where the hammerhead is?
We could do that, and it's, another question, reading the definition of frontage, I don't know what the town's done in the past, have they used the kind of wraparound of the dead end turnaround to meet that 150 frontage. I don't know if that's been.
Current code officer has interpreted that it has to be a straight line.
So also, because lot 13 doesn't encompass all the open space, there is some of the open space that fronts on the road that does have frontage, if that can be accounted for. But alternatively, yes, we could extend that. I mean, we'd probably extend another, I don't know, 60, 70 feet, so it wouldn't be a huge.
Well, the other question was lot, the 17 acres.
Yep,
You're
and
creating-
that would be, we're proposing to be a back lot, so that would be a 50-foot right-of-way extended off the end of that road. I do have some questions reading the ordinance exactly how, if we need to, if the back lot needs to have the minimum frontage on the right-of-way, on the 50-foot right-of-way that extend out there, which it is, we could extend that right-of-way into this lot to make that, meet that requirement, whether it's 150 or 300. So the intention was to get lot 13, the minimum frontage from the road, however we had to do that, and then land to be retained would just be a back lot.
So a couple of issues would be, the simple solution for lot 13 is to extend it whatever it takes to get the 300 feet there. Then it's clear, not saying you can't do it that way,
Yeah.
just saying easy. And then have, if, again, I'm not sure about the back, use it for back lot in a subdivision, may or may not be permissible legally, but if you just extend the right of way to the corner where it turns, at the end of the box where the writing is, and just create that road frontage. If it's a back lot, under that, you have to build currently 20-foot road, which in the amendments to go down 16 feet, so. Again, your responsibility is to try to figure out how to meet the ordinance requirements.
So I guess the question is, would that be a question for the code enforcement, or would that be a question that we would provide a legal analysis and that would get reviewed by?
I think the best thing to do, if it's straightforward and it clearly meets it, if it doesn't, if you're doing this kind of
Yep.
questionable stuff, then the best thing to do is get a land use attorney to make the case that it meets the requirements. And then the code officer can review that, and then I think that is the proper way to do it.
Okay.
Because we know how the code enforcement officer is gonna interpret it.
But like applying for a building permit or a subdivision application, the burden on you is to make the case, and then town reviews that, how does it help you make the case?
No, sometimes the town will have kind of precedent of they've had this come before and they're like, this is how we interpreted it, but it sounds like in this instance, it has not been. Which I think.
Then I think the other question is, can you count the little sections of where the open space comes up to the road, like the one you show? There's not a lot of that, but there is 40, 50 feet at least, I would think.
The code officer's interpreter has to be straight, continuous.
It has to be all contiguous, okay, that is, then the second thing is, do you have to, for the back lot, what you're gonna create as a back lot, does it need that, easement when you start working on this? When you put in your plan, your final plan, does that easement have to exist in the, back area?
Well, they're
That makes
creating, if they, this is why they gotta be careful, because it could be creating an illegal, non-conforming lot. You cannot create a lot that doesn't
That
meet
is my
zoning
question.
requirements.
Okay.
That's really the issue.
Even though the next guy could just put 150 feet on his property, a lot, whatever, I guess you're not calling that a lot, but it's 17 acres. Okay,
George, can I say a couple things? When you, recommend a legal opinion, are you kind of wrapping the entire open space cluster?
Well, those are the
Thing.
legal issues, I
Right, right, right.
think, would be, does that easement meet the ordinance requirements for open space, regardless of what other towns do?
Yeah.
Does it meet the definition of open space and the criteria for open space? And then the 17 acres to be retained does not appear to have a road frontage which is required, and lot 13 does not appear to have 300 feet of contiguous. Now, again, they can make a case and say, yes, here's how it meets the ordinance, and that'll be reviewed. And if the code officer has a question, they'll probably run it by the town's legal counsel to see.
That was my next
Because
question.
what you don't wanna do is you don't wanna create title problems.
Yeah, no, 100%, but my next question was, so, for consultants, third-party review, we ask for a, like a payment in advance and then we pay for them to do it. And we somewhat run that process.
We don't do that for legal, we do it for engineering.
That was my, okay, so, but it's on the applicant to do it for the legal and present us with their findings.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Is this public comment period?
No.
That's part of the development team.
Is it part of the development team period?
If you wanna speak, jump up and introduce yourself, please.
She can go first, though.
He's doing a very good job. Please jump.
Here's a clarifying question I wanna make sure we get answered, go ahead.
Thank you. I love this creative part of the process. And I don't think any of us here would approve anything that's a non-conforming lot at all.
That's
One
correct.
of the questions I have regarding one of George's comments about a paper street, do you have a plan you looked at connecting? I know you said that people love living at the dead end, but we have a requirement for connecting. Do you have a plan where you looked at connecting your proposed road to the Collins Way?
I didn't, I kind of looked at, because the road was kind of hanging off the air, I looked at, all right, you know, crossing this is a pretty good stream wetland complex. Kind of looked at areas over here, didn't seem like it was high likely that there'd be a future connection there. To be honest with you, I didn't even look at this because of that break on the end there, and I saw that and I said, well, that was created intentionally to prevent extension in the future.
Well, the wetlands kind of gets cut off
And the wetlands
the
does too.
property line there, but certainly you can find a way, somebody could find a way to get around it. It'd be nice to see what it would look like, to see if there was a connection there, because it is something that is in our ordinance, to at least look at
Yep.
and explore. Just wondering if there was an option to look at that, because obviously lot 13 has got all these weird things happening with it, and you're kind of parsing out parts in a weird way with part of the open space, but I think it'd be good to look at.
Part of the theory for doing this analysis is to say 100 years from now. And if this subdivision all develops out and the rest of the town all develops out and becomes much more of a suburb like Brunswick and Freeport and other towns, doing an eminent domain for 100 feet to connect the subdivisions is a whole different matter than trying to lay out a whole new road system. So that's why the ordinance most ordinances call for these, at least paper street connections, so that in the future, you know, there is a little block there, and like Bill was saying, people do that, but town has an eminent domain power at some point in the distant future. That if you don't make those provisions, it's much harder.
And don't tell anybody we're thinking about using eminent domain. Connect those two streets.
One thing you have to be.
That's why I said 100 years from now.
One thing you have to be concerned with that is Collins Way is a town
That's what I
road.
said, it's a green zone, so.
So you would be connecting a town road with a non-town road, and that could create a lot of issues.
On the path of being creative, if I could, jump on his comment, the access road in, is relatively like straight, which I can understand and appreciate, but I wonder if you, like, somewhat redesigned it a bit more, if you could avoid impacting as many wetlands. You know what I mean, instead of just going straight through, like if we just made, you know what I'm saying, like
Just
especially
like potentially like kind of
Yes.
coming up here, something like
Yeah,
that. We had looked at that, it kind of gets a little funky with the minimum horizontal
yeah, I know,
curves
it
with the
impacts
roads.
your lots, right?
And the lots as
Yes.
well. But, you know, you run across two, you got the 100-foot minimum horizontal curve for the roads. So come back there, it was getting a little funky and trying to get the number of lots we wanted and not extending the road that much. But we could definitely evaluate that and see if there's a way we could do it to minimize the wetland impacts as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good to see.
Yeah, although it's a kind of a solid line of wetlands. I'm sure I could.
I don't think you're gonna say much is what when we look at it prior.
And right there, like if you could come up, you're gonna lose a lot, but like, you know, you want it to impact less.
Did one of you two have something you wanna say?
I had a question about the road frontage on lot 13. So if lot 13 is part of the lots for the cluster subdivision, George, you keep saying 300 feet. I just wanna make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, theoretically, you could reduce it down to 150 feet.
Okay. That was my one question, thank you.
And, you know, I think logically, if you're going to connect to Collins Way, I think the most logical thing would be to extend off the end of here and just impact those wetlands, which is not ideal. But trying to connect back in here, coming to the side, it's gonna really be kind of a difficult transition. And it does look like, again, we don't know what comes offsite here, but I think this is kind of starting to be the end of this wetland figure. So you're kind of impacting the very end of those wetlands, which is, I'll call it the least functional part of those wetlands.
I guess if you're thinking about doing something for 100 years from now, you could create an easement now that would extend from whatever you're gonna call your new road up to the area you just described so it would just be an easement. But it will have an impact on lot 13, I mean, you know, so, just, I guess, something to consider. You know, you wouldn't have to do it today, you wouldn't have to get the neighbors all riled up. You know, sometimes it's necessary, but it's,
Basically, with the paper streets, you'd have the front setback would have to be maintained off that paper street from lot 13. So you'd have a 50-foot setback.
line through the,
Because theoretically, in 100 years, if this was developed, you wouldn't want a house that was built.
The current ordinance does not require double fronts, so.
Okay.
So do we have a definition for paper street? It only shows on paper.
I guess you're talking about something, it's
Yeah, it's
an
backed out.
easement, I see it as an easement,
It's
it's
backed
a
out but not constructed.
final plan.
Well, you know, we haven't seen the HOA, but to your point, it's a town road to a private road. But in the future, the HOA could say, we don't want this to be a private road anymore, we want the town to accept it.
The town will accept it, right? Currently,
But we must have somewhere in town where private roads run into town roads. I mean, so it is something that, you know, is fairly,
all private roads come off town roads.
let's say, okay, we'll say it the other way around.
But it
But
gets-
where they connect,
it gets into a maintenance expense, and it gets into an increase in busing. We've been down this Excuse the Pond Road many times.
I like it. Well, I think the easy answer is, an easement, in my mind, if we want to have some kind of future connection, which, you know, until I saw that there was no way to connect, I'm fair, because I do believe we need to connect our neighborhoods. I mean, I just think it's because I'd hate to think that a kid on lot 14 or lot 8 has to go all the way back out to Quaker Meeting to come all the way over to 125 to do that, if we could somehow figure out a way to connect them.
Historically, you can look at Plum Mill Road, which never went through. Plum Mill Road did not go through. The Old Brunswick Road did not go through, it wasn't passable by a car. And it was a great enhancement for when they did connect those for bus traffic and emergency vehicles. Versus having to go in halfway, go all the way around town and come back the other end. I mean, there are pluses.
Yeah, which probably neither, at the end of the day, neither neighborhood like the fact is, the big negative is the connectiveness, that does become a high-speed avenue approach out to 125 and back, you know,
Yeah.
it could be.
But I would certainly think that the people that live on Collins Way, the HOA, would probably have a lot of say in that.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see the town taking it by eminent domain in my lifetime, which, you know, so I really think you have it there. We did that with Deer Creek, we just, you know, we come off the end of Deer Creek Road and it's just a paper easement or whatever to get out to the next property so that that can then eventually, you know, go through the next property. I'd like to see that, I'm a big supporter of that, and it'd be nice to be able to connect these neighborhoods. But any,
You know, exploring the easement with, being proactive, to see what the future may, that may be an option also.
How wide is your road?
The right of way or the actual road?
Your right way is 50,
50, yeah,
right?
and then the road is, I believe, 20 feet with 2-foot shoulders on both
Right.
sides.
Right.
Ground shoulders. And then, you know, the intention is, for the most part, you'll have roadside ditches that take up the water and then send it to whatever collection system we have there. There will be some cross-connection culverts where we have these wetlands. That's one of the requirements that the Army Corps has, is they really want to maintain what they call the hydraulic connectivity between the wetlands. So there'll be a culvert embedded here, so usually it's embedded like 6 inches below the ground, or allows kind of the water to flow between. In this instance, it's not a huge deal because there is some decent slope across here that's really made for like flat areas, but we'll meet that requirement anyways. But so you'll have one over here, and one over here to connect these wetlands together as well. And then depending on what happens over here, if this is a driveway, there will also have to be a cross connection pipe over there as well to maintain the connectivity.
and I'm sure you will when you talk to the road commissioner, public works guy, he has concerns about the quality of the driveway entrances and the culverts underneath driveways. So please, when you're doing that, you get into that detail.
Yep.
You might wanna touch base, and you need to talk to him about a whole bunch of stuff. Not the least of which is your line of sight on Quaker Meeting.
Yep, I have looked at that preliminarily, it looks fine, I need to grab another engineer from our office, feel like they're really need 2 people to measure it, so, but we'll measure that before we go for a there as well.
We actually have an entrance permit already for that road.
That's true,
The road
yeah.
commissioner went out, like, he measured it, and he did the sight lines for that, and it's there.
Yeah, and just put it on the drawing then. Super, thank you.
I did have, I have a few more things to discuss.
Please do.
Yeah, we kind of interrupted.
No, Dave, you're fine, you're
We policy discussion on interconnected roads.
fine. So,
Just to make a point about that though, is that an avenue we're gonna go down, and we're not gonna go down that one, just for time's sake?
Whichever.
The
Connection. That, because it would be talking, you know, moving whole, everything would shift, right?
I think I don't speak for.
Well, I think you guys need to talk about it.
We're not interested.
Okay. So that may, and I don't think we're gonna ask you to connect them, I think the question is, do you put an easement there? So, yeah, I mean, come back in and say you don't wanna do it, and the board can tell you to pound sand, or they'll agree with you, one or the other, so.
So this is the site development plan. It's tough to see at this scale, but this is kind of the high point here, and then all of these grades kind of slope down away from
That's
it.
Durham Heights.
Yes, Durham Heights. The views actually from here are pretty good.
I bet they are.
So these little boxes here is kind of a typical house with a garage next to it. Obviously, the shape and size may change depending on who buys it. The majority of the house layouts are relatively close to the roadway. There are a couple lots, this one here and this one here, where the houses are set back a little bit further away, and that's primarily due to the setbacks from the wetlands. So especially this one here, because this wetland kind of tails away, and we don't really have enough buildable area until that wetland starts to snake off, so that's why that house is set back so far. This building here, again, that is avoiding those steep slopes there as well. And I was looking at some of the notes from the last subdivision, the sketch one that was presented here, and there was discussion about could those steep slopes be modified during construction of the house law. I don't know if there was a conclusion to that.
I think we just left it up to whoever
Okay.
the developer come in and tell us, you know, what they want to, because that was the sketch plan, right?
Yep.
So, I think that's, we have not done their sidewalk yet, so, but I think it's fair to say there was no determination requirement one way or the other.
Is your question kind of like after the fact, to potentially, cut some topo out?
Yeah, like ideally, if this house wants more of a backyard, can they come back in here and level this out? I would think it would be advantageous to eliminate the steep slope, but
Yeah,
I don't know if
one
it's
thing I would think of is stormwater, your stormwater plan, so if you're changing the slopes of anything, but you're not including it in the stormwater plan, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not,
Well, I
Well,
think our comment was, the building envelope should not include slopes greater than 20%. And so you have several sites, several lots here that include a slope greater than 20%. We didn't talk about whether or not you can cut it down.
Okay.
Our ordinance says the building envelope
hmm,
should not include slopes greater than 20%. So lots 5, 7, 12, and I forget the other one, include that.
so the way I've interpreted that is the building envelope itself is the areas within the property that can be built on. We need to have a minimum of 40,000 square feet of contiguous building envelope. So when for this one, we've calculated, this area is contiguous, there's a break in those steep slopes there. So we did not include any of those steep slopes in that calculation for that 40,000 square feet of building envelope. And that's the same here. So when we look at this, let's say the lot here is 50,000 square feet, well, we have to take out this area and make sure we still meet that 40,000 square foot contiguous building envelope.
is the building envelope shown here, like inside these, right? Is that your building
Those are the
envelope?
setbacks.
The setbacks are there, the building envelope is not everything within the setbacks, because it can include other stuff besides just the building, the driveway, the other things that are within that.
So I
it's just-
guess, a good point from Brian, like, so, yeah, the 20% requirement, so you're saying you did not read it that way?
So the calculation for the building envelope does not include any of the steep slopes,
Okay, nothing 20%,
25%.
or whatever it is, yeah, okay. Okay,
So there's a table on the subdivision plan that has kind of the total lot size for those, and then subtracts out the areas that are not part of the the building envelope, which is wetlands and steep slopes. So, and then you get the kind of a net
Okay.
building envelope.
Okay, so then back to your question, I think then your plan is to not cut the steep slopes.
No, I'm just thinking in the future, not meeting town requirements like that, just in the future, when these lots are developed, can those steep slopes be touched? I guess that's what.
I would say not with the permit, if the permit didn't include
Okay.
those, right? Like, that's my thought right now, just, I'm hearing what, it's just.
What we've done on other, like, Deer Creek Crossing, some of the lots were kind of constrained by wetlands. So if there's a question like that, for that, whatever that lot number is, you could prepare a grading plan. It could be approved by the planning board, and typically what you do is say, as long as they follow that grading plan, which the planning board reviews, determines that it meets all the requirements and it's not gonna cause stormwater or other problems. And then when you're doing construction, if you wanna make changes to that, as long as you get a revised grading plan submitted to the town, then the idea is that, make sure the lot's gonna work. And we saw that up on Bowie Hill, where they came in and because they didn't anticipate the grades, they pushed the house, violated the setback, had to come back, change lot lines, all that good stuff. Didn't wanna do that.
Well, do you not, I've not seen it made, are there not such things as walkout basements?
Yep.
Which you would put on a very steep, relatively steep slope.
Yep.
So just, you don't necessarily, I'm not telling you you have to, but you could put a house on a steep slope, just have a walkout basement.
Yep.
Retaining walls and all that stuff, so.
You can also angle the house on that lot. Plus curb the field, I don't know if that's okay, right?
I question lot 5 as well, that looks interesting.
And if you got questions about any one particular lot or whatever, or how to do it, I think a good codes guy would be a good, this is what we wanna do in this lot, those lots, before you get too far down. And I will make that a general statement that I would talk to the fire chief about fire safety, I would talk to the public works guys, and you've already started that with the road cut. And I would talk to, the codes guy, to, you know, any questions you have now is a good time to do it. Before you get into design and then say, oh, he's not gonna let me build that there, or I could have built that there, or,
Yep.
you know, whatever it may have been.
Brian, did you just have a concern about 5? I don't see anything on 5. Or, did you just say something about lot 5?
Yeah, it's not shown here, but it looks like there's greater than 20% storm on 5. And that's up to your engineer to figure out, but from what I see in the topo, it looks like it's pretty good.
No, it was a little bit less than the 25% requirement. So we use software where you create a surface tin based on the contours, 2-foot contours. And then we can say, all right, show us all areas that are more than 25%. You know, map them all here. And sometimes it maps like, you know, ones that are the size of a postage stamp, you know, like, well, we're not gonna include that one, because it's literally just a glitch in the software, but these were the major areas that were identified.
Understood, thank you.
Yep.
It just visually, the
Yep.
topo line
They were
shows
close.
like it's.
And sometimes the difference between 5 feet and 6 feet is, you know, so close, it's kind of difficult to tell on the drawing. And then the last slide here I have, so the farmland soils, this was not in your packet, but when I received those staff notes, I did go through the state GIS and got their shape file for their mapping of the soils. I put it on here so you can see there, obviously the red hatching area is those. I looked at the ordinance as well, I don't see any specific requirement associated with that. I did look at the state websites. It looks like it's mostly used as just a mapping tool for the state and the federal, the USDA. I did see some stuff about, did come into discussion when a lot of the solar farms are being developed, first go round, and there was concerns about them taking up all the farmland in the state. So I don't know if the rules ever went in effect, but there was rules discussed that restricted how much solar could be located on these types of soils. And again, I don't know if those rules ever actually went into effect, but that's the only regulation I saw associated with them.
No, thank you for adding this, our
Yeah.
comp plan does say that our subdivision should indicate where prime agricultural soils may exist.
And I mean, just kind of think about it, I mean, I was reading what makes the definition of prime farmland soils. They're dry, they're non-rocky, deep, seasonal high groundwater typically. What makes perfect residential development sites. So it's kind of, you read everything that lists for prime farmland, like, yeah, that's a prime house lot as well. So it's just kind of interesting.
I got a question about stormwater and Durham standards. Basically, we go by the DEP standards, the DMPs. The language in there is talking about you don't have to do a stormwater if you meet certain, but this would not meet those exemptions.
So would it be required to provide treatment or just attendant? Because I was reading it, looking ahead like the 10% rule.
No, I think that was for determining that you're not required to do a stormwater management plan.
Okay.
This is gonna have a stormwater management plan, and whatever the state does, that's what you do here.
So, and that was kind of, so the state, this doesn't require any state stormwater permitting other than the permit by rule, which is just a erosion control implementation. So, if it doesn't,
There's no more than an acre of disturbance on that entire site.
there's an acre of disturbance, which is triggered the PBR, but there's not an acre of new impervious. So, I think we're at like point.
With all of the driveways and the roofs and the road.
So because the lots are going to be sold and developed by a separate entity, those are not included as part of the impervious area. So the only impervious area we'll be looking at is any driveways, any roads, any access paths, if there's a access road to like a stormwater pond or a fire pond, that would be included. But the development of the individual lots, that impervious area would not be included towards the 1 acre threshold.
Does that include the footprint of a house?
They're saying they don't have to come to help us. We went through this with Deer Creek Crossing, and after peer reviewer looked at it, said, yeah. So, in any case.
Yeah.
We have the same stormwater standards for performance. As thresholds might be different, but what we're saying is we don't have special stormwater
Okay.
performance standards, you go by whatever DEP does. But I would take another look at that, because I'd be
But
surprised.
we will, George
Yep.
mentioned a good point, which is when you get into your design, there will be a peer review.
And that comes after the preliminary is accepted.
Yeah. When you submit your final plans.
And we do require a stormwater management plan unless a waiver is
Yep.
requested. And that actually brings up a question, do you know of any waivers you're thinking of yet?
I don't think so
Okay.
at this point. We had looked at potentially a couple of the lots where we might requesting a waiver for a reduction in that 50-foot wetland setback. I don't think we're gonna have that request. And we will have a stormwater management plan. My main question is what was included in that plan, but I'll review that further.
Just go by DEP.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay, behind me.
Were you doing your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk about the existing driveway to the existing house? And there's, you say in your summary that you're gonna have underground utilities, but anyway, that existing driveway looks like it has existing power poles to lot 7. Is there gonna be a right of way granted to CMP or whoever owns those poles through lots 1, 3, and 5 to lot 7?
So those poles will be abandoned, and the driveway will be abandoned, will be probably, scuffed up and reseeded.
So
after
lot
that.
7's access is gonna be through the new road?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, okay, alright, so that right of way is gonna be abandoned,
Or just the driveway, it's not a right of way,
the
but
driveway?
Yeah. And I would say too, if you've ever driven by the site, it's not a, it's a pretty narrow driveway. It's kind of, I won't call it a go path, but it's a, it's a pretty narrow driveway to be up there.
Again, thinking creativity. Like, if there's a way to connect, that existing driveway to the paper street to Collins, but anyway, some food for thought. And then the cemetery. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So it's located right here, this little wedge of the open space that comes up there. We didn't want to have that included as part of any of the lots, just with concerns about over the years, if you own a piece of property, people forget there's a cemetery there, and it gets disturbed. So that's located right in this triangle here. I believe there's 1 or 2 gravestones there. It's pretty clear where it's located. Our surveyor's located the corners of it. There's no disturbance allowed within 25 feet of those markers. So that will be protected, and there's already a deed for the cemetery, but it probably makes sense for something in the HOA docs as well to include that disturbance within that 25-foot setback around as well.
And again, this is preliminary.
Yep.
Your boundaries show that into lots 10 and 12 right
The 25-foot setback?
now. Yeah.
Yes. Yep, so it's located, if you look at those 2 lots, the setback is located within the side setbacks of those properties. So, there could be no building there. So really the only thing that we would be concerned about is any disturbance within that area. And so I think that's where kind of the HOA docs would come into effect.
And there's no delineation, there's no walls, fences, it's just headstones right now.
I believe there are some
It's, I think it's like 2 rocks.
2 rocks. It's kind of just an old family cemetery.
The setbacks on slate 12, call it the southwestern setback. Looks like it goes right to the property line.
I saw that too, and I think that was just an error. There should be a side setback there. Those laws got reconfigured prior to submission, I think I just, that didn't get added, so there would be a 20-foot setback there.
And you are gonna propose a fire pump, these houses are not sprinkled?
No, the plan right now is to have, some sort of fire pond. Location we were kind of looking at was over here. Some type of, there'd be a stormwater basin over there, but then also be a good spot for a fire pond, as well. There are some wet soils there that would help feed into that. And we would just design that, there's some specs in the ordinance as well, but we'll also reach out to the fire department to make sure it's designed to their specs as well.
And it's okay to impact wetlands to build like stormwater facilities and fire ponds? It doesn't count towards your 1/10 of an acre,
It does count towards that.
or it does count
Yep,
towards that?
yep.
Okay,
So, yeah, so when we impact those wetlands, that will be part of the impacts associated with the development.
so I guess I could say, I understand why it's a good spot to build one, right, because it's wet, but could you do it elsewhere where there's not a wetland?
Yeah, I think we would try to minimize the impacts, I don't think we're trying to wipe out that wetland at all. And what I'm saying is that the soils in that area are generally wet,
Yeah.
but I think we would try to minimize wetland.
I think like
There
the
is,
entire, like this is wet, right? And
Yes.
although it's like, it is got some topo, so.
You remember, you're looking over 100 acres too, though.
Right, yeah, it's a big area and it's steep in some areas, but I mean, there's a lot of wetlands here, so it's gonna be wet, right?
yeah, and I think, we had kind of looked at before we had the wetland delineation, we had looked at the slopes here. I think we were pretty surprised by the amount of wetlands that came back from this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I was actually looking at, I think the mapped wetlands was a lot less than this.
Like the national wetlands,
Yes,
yeah, I mean, those are, they
I
don't
know
really
they're not-
capture these fingers ever.
Right,
They'll capture the larger wetlands, but the kind of fingers that they're never showing those maps. But there's some upland in between these wetland areas, and
Right.
again, this is somewhat deceptive of how big that area is, so there might be opportunity to locate the fire pond, stormwater pond in that area.
We gotta be careful because the chief's gotta be able to get to it.
Yep.
In the middle of the night and all that other kind of stuff, so.
one more question I'll let you get that. The vernal pools, so Alex, I was glad to see he did the report,
Yeah.
and the delineation. He did note that the vernal pool review was done out of season, so just a thought, and maybe not firm, but from my standpoint that I would want to have him to go out and look for vernal pools during the season. Breeding habitat.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's pretty common practice to delineate or to try to determine vernal pools outside of the season. What they can't determine is the significance out of season. They can't determine if it's significant or not significant. But generally, they can determine if there is a vernal pool in those areas, just due to the depression. If there is any standing water there when they look at it. If you want some further documentation from Alex, I think we can
Yeah,
provide that.
maybe, yeah, I'd have to talk to the board about it for
Yep.
sure, but that's just my thought. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think this is my last comment. You said you don't think you're going to ask for any waivers, and we don't really like surprises, and we don't wanna make non-conforming lots, but to the northeast of lot 14, it looks like you've set some setbacks as if 15, 16, and 17 might be in the future. Is there a future proposal to develop those as lots?
I would say the applicant wants to maintain the ability to do that in the future. I don't think there's any plans at this point to do it. And there are some triggering thresholds that if they did do that, they could trigger site law from DEP or stormwater law from DEP. So is there potential for future development of lot 13? Definitely. But it's not included as part of this proposal.
They'd have to come back for amendment subdivision anyway.
But would it still be a cluster?
It would have to, well, I mean, it depends on what is in the ordinance when they come back to do it, If the ordinance is changed, then they-
I'm assuming 50% open space is within the easement.
Yeah.
So if they subdivide the area that's not an easement, that's not open space, right?
that's correct.
So wouldn't be any, I don't think it'd be any impact on the net residential area calculations.
Or at the end of the day, they have to come back in and
Yeah,
if
and
you
they-
screwed it up,
they-
then,
they could
you
be-
know,
they could
you
if they
can't do
could.
it, so. Not that you would screw it up. Any other questions?
Yeah,
I
so
would just like to know that.
Now,
Well, I think we work with what we got.
Financially now, no.
Okay, we have more questions?
yes, for cluster, for open space, we talked about it being a lot potentially. So would that fit our definition of open space? Like, isn't open space supposed to be like this area that is being almost preserved? If it's a lot, is it not open space in perpetuity, like almost like an easement, right? Like a conservation easement or something, right?
Yeah, that's what whether it's a lot or it's an easement, it's still gonna be deprotected from future
Okay.
development.
Okay, I think it's the word lot that I'm
Yeah.
like,
And the lot is just, if it's open space is its own lot, meaning its own property lines, that then the DEP considers that a lot.
got it,
for
got it,
sale.
okay, thank you, that's
typically the open space is a separate lot.
great, thank you. And one more question, I think, your timeline, what's your thoughts on timeline? I know it's still early, but
Yeah, there is some additional stuff we have to get completed for preliminary. One is septic test pits and, you know, ideally we'll be back for you before in December. I don't know how feasible it is, but I mean, definitely we wanna get this before you December, January for preliminary. And then we're gonna have some DEP permits we're waiting on, but ideally, I mean, this is a spring project,
next year.
yes.
So you've already submitted your permit applications for both DEP and Army Corps?
Have not yet, the DEP, I believe that's a 60-day review period from DEP. And the Army Corps with their new regional general permits, I have no idea how long they're gonna take, so.
Okay.
Could be 60 days, could be, I mean, they're completely unknown right now, and unfortunately with the shutdown right now, they are minimal staff as well, so their projects are just stacking up right now.
Mhm.
So, hopefully when that gets shut down, goes away, they'll be able to catch back up, but it could be a lengthy delay.
Hope there's not a method.
That's it for me, thank you.
I think reference doing this again in December, you have to have it submitted next week, right, or a week after?
The 19th, I think.
Is that the,
Whatever that
so, I
number
mean,
is.
if you can make it, you're good for it, but I'm just saying it's,
Yeah,
Kind of
it's tight, it's tight to get it.
and we're gonna wanna see, you know, permits and some other stuff before we get too far, along there, so. Anything else for the gentleman? I have a couple of things that we haven't, talked about, I think what I'm down to just one thing, which is, and I'm gonna sit back on this one, because I'm not going, but sidewalk. While they're here scheduling a sidewalk. So I will not be on the board at that time, so I'll defer to my
You can still come if you want.
I retired from the army, I do not walk in mud and all that other crap unless I absolutely have to. And if I'm not on the board, I don't have to.
I will say this one is a little bit different than Deer Creek. I remember how that one was cut in before, this is just woods.
Yeah, that's
Just
exactly what I was thinking too.
I think, and, you know, every board's different on how much they wanna walk, I think it would make some sense to take that existing driveway up to you know, the kind of the top point, you kind of see the layout. And if there's any specific areas we wanna look at, then we can do that. But I think starting with that house and going from there would make the most sense.
So lot
7.
7,
Another option is to go to Collins Way and get down in the end of that and come across. That helps get to that high point, you know, of the lot also.
You'd have to cross private property to do that though.
I know those people, I can probably call and ask them.
And I
I
will,
think in the past, we've asked for stakes in strategic areas and.
That was my other question of, do you want the road completely staked out or just a couple stakes every couple hundred feet, or what would you do?
It's good seeing where the road's going in, for sure.
I think we've lived with, you know, something, not the whole 50-foot easement for the length of the
Center
road.
line.
We have some
Yeah.
straight segments there where you could do a couple every 100, 250 feet.
And you can see between the
Yeah,
stakes.
exactly.
When do we need to do a site visit?
It says at the sketch plan phase, so.
Okay, so that would be the next, right? That's the next phase.
Well, yeah, before, I guess, do you guys want to do it before they do preliminary or give them the feedback before then? You know, recognizing it's dark at 4
Right, right,
in
right.
the afternoon, and so, I have the luxury of just sitting back and,
Do you guys do weekend sidewalks or like?
We really haven't before, but I'm not against it.
Everybody's face like,
I'm not against it,
so,
I don't know what else I could do it, so.
right, exactly.
yeah, I mean, you're not gonna see anything.
And I'd rather see it sooner than later,
Yes.
honestly.
So I'm just kind of getting curious, but what works for the 4 folks and the applicants?
I would say within the next couple of weeks.
So either, what is this week, the 9th, what is, I'm sorry?
This Saturday is the 8th.
The 8th, so the 8th to the 15th,
We do need to post that you're gonna be doing it.
oh, that's because it's open to the public, so the 15th would be the only, of those 2 days, the only one that works.
It's a Saturday.
Notice, I'm gonna look at these days, but not put them in my calendar.
Oh, can I just make a suggestion that we should go on Sunday because it's hunting season?
Oh, that's an excellent point.
So if we go on Sunday, we don't have to worry about that.
Is everybody okay with,
My calendar's empty that day, the 16th.
Wait, hold up. Sorry, my computer's not here.
so it'd be the 16th, I guess.
I think that would give our surveys enough time to get somebody out there.
Well, I think, I mean, if not, I mean, if you need, so you're participating in the answer, so then it would kick it out to the 23rd, which is still not Thanksgiving, so it seemed to be the 16th or the 23rd.
How much public notice do we need to get, just a week?
Yeah,
Or is it
that's
10
fine.
days? Okay,
That's fine.
okay, so we're good there. I'm good on the 16th.
Could have either one.
Yep, you want to
Yes.
see?
I like the idea of Sunday.
Sunday at 1,
Um,
1:30 or whatever.
Sure.
Again, you will notice I'm not taking notes or putting them down.
And I'm assuming you're gonna meet at the driveway in the house.
Yeah, where are we meeting?
It's pretty tight, that driveway going up to the current homeowner. Like, you couldn't get 2 cars and get by,
No.
so,
But you could park on Quaker Meeting Road and walk up the driveway.
yeah. Just watch that ditch right there.
What
Comes out good.
do you guys think is the,
We can park.
Park by the power lines, that's right there.
Okay.
That's easy spot.
Oh, Meadow Road is right there too.
Alright, so what time, 1?
1 o'clock work for everybody on a Sunday?
The 16th is what we're saying?
I think that seems to be the day.
And if-
Can I ask, whoops, sorry, go.
I was just, for whatever reason, if my survey guys don't think they can get out there with them, don't think they will, I'll let George know tomorrow.
You don't think they'll be able to do it? or
I think
you
they will be able to.
Okay.
If for whatever reason they can't, I'll let George know like tomorrow and then we can discuss.
Sure, can we just say that if it's not doable the 23rd, same time, same place?
Yeah.
That way there's some
Backup
flexibility,
plan.
because we won't have another, guess we have a meeting on the 12th, but that's cutting it close.
Yep.
If it looks like-
Would you rather push it to the 23rd, just to give them time?
Well, 23rd, I'll be in Disney World with my family.
Yeah, it'd probably be good to have you there.
I would be in Disney World on the 16th, but it's more important to have Joe there than me.
That'll be on the 30th.
Hey, we're gonna say.
So the 16th, and if failing that, you'll let George know, and George will let everybody know the 23rd.
No, I would, maybe the 30th.
That's how about Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, okay, sorry. I feel like it would be really good to have you there.
Yeah, I mean, there's somebody else in our office who's familiar with the project.
Okay, alright. So I guess then, yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Roy,
I have a question. So I just wanna make sure that I understand the timeline correctly, because we're trying to get documents into you by the 19th to be able to come back to the December meeting. And I wanna make sure that I understand the process correctly. The site walk happens to determine whether or not a cluster subdivision is appropriate? Is that,
Well, it says that it has to be done at sidewalk, it doesn't say that hinges on it.
okay, so at the last, not what, at the other project
Yep.
that came for sketch plan.
Yep.
There was a conversation about whether or not cluster was appropriate for that project among this board.
Yep.
And so, obviously, going into preliminary review, we kind of need to know if the board feels cluster is appropriate, because if that's not the way that the board feels, it's gonna substantially
Very good
change
point.
the documents that are going in on the 19th.
I would say that we need a legal opinion then, right? Like, or
What is
we
the,
don't need it, but
Well,
that's gonna drive.
Well, it's just on that, those issues are not gonna determine whether it's cluster or not.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to, that open space is gonna have to meet the open space requirements, one way or the other.
Yeah.
So if they say, no, it can't be an easement, it has to be a separate lot, they do it a separate lot, it's not gonna change the cluster or not cluster.
Okay.
do we
And I
feel,
think that every application is very different, every site is very different. And if I recall correctly, the subdivision you're referring to, which we did not schedule a site walk for, the question was whether or not they had made the right calculations for buildable area.
Mhm.
And I haven't seen it
Yeah.
since then, it looked like they were missing some, and they were like right there, where it couldn't, it might not meet the definition of a cluster. So it looked like, it sounded to me like the engineer, step on my throat if I'm talking out of place here, but it sounded like the engineer needed to do some more homework to figure if it needed to be if it could meet the cluster requirements.
Right, and obviously
This one I
this was,
think does.
yes, and obviously
Without
this one's
question.
designed the way that it is in this cluster because obviously that entire parcel had no wetlands on it. This would be a very different conversation that we would be having right now, right? But we're proposing cluster because we don't wanna impact all of those wetlands that are on this site.
And you're protecting them in a way too.
Exactly.
For the future, which I appreciate.
Exactly.
It's a lot of open space as
Right.
well, like that's the benefit to this, like, I forget what's the acreage on it, but 45 acres of open space, that's quite a bit of land.
Right, I feel like
And
this is
comparable
literally,
to other subdivisions, like my last subdivision that I did, right?
I feel like this is literally the reason to do cluster right here. This is like a poster child for it, personally.
Yeah, so I don't really have any concerns with the cluster piece.
Alan, are you good with them proceeding with the, obviously approvals to follow at some, down the road, but are you good with moving on with?
Yes.
Okay,
I do have-
the answer is yes at this point.
Thank you.
That's a cluster. I do have two questions in terms of what the board will expect for preliminary and final. There's a couple items in the ordinance that the board has the authority to ask for or not ask for. One is a high-intensity soil survey for the project.
I don't think we've done that unless there's a real proof that there is a problem.
What is the reason for a high intensity
If
soil?
you're scattering your septic systems within a lot of wetland areas, not with the kind of topography you have here, but say you have a low, let's say they were down those lower elevations. Then that's where you wanna have the high intensity, to be able to precisely determine where there's gonna be.
And the other one is a hydrogeological assessment, which typically what that includes is, it kind of maps out the nitrate drainage in the septic systems. I was reading the language that you have in the ordinance, and some of it talks about them discussing like looking for potential contamination of adjacent wells, and kind of seem to go outside the scope of the typical
What section are
hydrogeological
you in?
assessment.
And I don't think we've required that
Yeah,
in
and
the past.
that comes in where you have an area that wells are going dry. And you wanna make sure that the wells of this subdivision have water, and you wanna make sure they don't take water away from other people. So typically, that can be like on Allen, Day Road. They basically looked at the recharge rates of the area, how much was being developed. And I think maybe on Bowie Hill they did as well, I can't remember, but it's
Yeah,
just a
that's-
general, if there was an issue with people not getting wells, that's where you really get into more intense analysis
Well,
about.
so how would we know people are having issues with wells?
Well, they look at the wells, like
That's what I
their
mean, so
well
they-
data, and if people, like, we're gonna have, be notifying neighbors, and if they say, wait a minute.
So they provide a plan, a report to us?
Yeah.
Yes,
If
about
we-
that, so that's where that would come in, is what
Yeah,
I'm
and
saying.
again, this subdivision ordinance is based on, it could be a 300 lot subdivision being
Yeah.
proposed with high density, whatever it would be,
Right.
so it's there if you need it, but it's not typically.
I was gonna say, we haven't done it in the past. You're gonna drill wells?
Yeah.
Go deep enough?
Yeah, I gotta add this to the subdivision. We have to add a note that no duck wells are allowed in the subdivision.
Okay.
so.
Oh, was there any other questions you have?
That's the one question I had.
Okay, so are we done with the gentleman, the lady?
I guess so.
In that case, I guess they will see you on,
John's making coffee. John's making,
I mean,
yep.
67 o'clock.
I suspect John will not be there.
He won't be able to stay away, don't worry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks, folks. Okay, so we've knocked through those two things, and then I think the next thing, George, other business. Planning board discussion of land use ordinance amendments, public comment will not be taken. I think the intent on this was for George to bring us up to snuff on some of this stuff. Next week, you all will be looking at, items that need to change that we haven't discussed at this point. So George, if you wanna do that, the agricultural committee will not be here. They did provide, I think, some definitions, but George can, I don't think, in my opinion, the board is not ready to get into some detail on those without input from the agricultural committee, what they're doing and what their goal is. So, George, you wanna kick us off with staff notes codification update?
Sure, and just to bring us all up to speed, we did do a public information meeting on the 7 minor policy issues a couple of weeks ago, and I did include in the minutes of that meeting. I think probably the big issue that was discussed and the board indicated we need to further discuss was noise. The other issues seem to not generate a lot of concern or controversy, so on that one issue, I think you have to kind of make a decision, and what came up was, maybe some tweaking if you want to do that, like the hours that you can do construction. This had proposed to go to 7 AM instead of 6:30. There was some comments about concerns for what that would do to people in the summer doing construction on roofs. But I think adjusting that would be one thing, but to more get into quite a bit of discussion about blasting, firing ranges, and fireworks. And I think if you start delving into those areas, then you're probably pushing this out of the minor policy realm, because those are fairly big policy issues. So if you want to stick with just clarifying how sound studies are done and tweaking some of the parameters for it, like we've discussed in the initial drafts. Now, part of what wrote those in was adding the definitions, because the current draft talked in just the tweaking, talked about intermittent noise. And John had brought up, well, we need to define those. When we brought the definitions in, one of the definitions of intermittent included gunshots and blasting, so that's what got us rolling in that direction. So I think, as I said, if you want to get into either exempting blasting, fire ranges, and fireworks, or including them with standards, then I think you're probably gonna have to separate this issue out from the other minor policies. And either deal with it separately right now, or push it off until after the codification, which either way you wanna go is fine.
I'd like to make a, what's it called? Motion, thank you, sorry, to, push noise out and actually not talk about it right now. Let's wait until next time around, next year. That's my motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? The only thing I would say is, I have no problem with what you're proposing. I've also have no problem if we put the new, limits on noise, but we, take out of, I won't go into that. I'm fine with just, picking it up down the road and, not doing it for this particular, meeting, putting it on the list for this. I don't think we have that many people issuing, when we did the sand pit quarry, whatever, gravel pit, it came up, and I think they went out and did kind of a homemade test or whatever, but I have not heard of any
It does warrant further look,
Yeah.
but not as a minor.
Well, as the town grows, there's gonna be more,
Yeah.
you know, more people moving in next to them. So we have, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second, all in favor of not doing noise at this year, this coming time, please raise a hand. And it's unanimous.
Okay, so then, next week, we move into what we've described as administrative changes. And so these are things like, giving an extra week for planning board reviews of applications. What were some of the others to, I've got them here.
It's on,
Driveway standards.
yeah, it's on your,
Well, the codification as a whole, which are all technical grammar, then subdivision road standards update, the driveway standards update. And again, those are just updating the standards, it's not changing policy. Zoning district boundaries, having you folks review those instead of the Board of Appeals, which meets once every other year at this point. The subdivision solid waste, getting a readiness to serve, so those are all just administrative changes to try to make the system work better. So that'll be next week's public information meeting. And so pretty much we're ready to roll on that. You have actually all seen those before, they're all posted on the website. I prepared that, in pretty much the presentation will be just like last time, where I've got the slides that take from the summaries that are on the website, puts it on the screen, we go through it, take comments. You have discussion if there is any comment, and then we move on. So giving the opportunity to the public to really look at these and give input before it goes to the next stage.
and the attorney
Oh, yes.
said we could not
John
do
did
something on the
mention-
Board of Appeals.
John did mention the agriculture committee, which we can talk about.
If we can step back, just,
Yeah,
I'm talking
Step
about,
back to the town attorney changes.
and not the agriculture, but the appeals, is that what you're getting to?
Well, okay, so the town attorney had 5 different areas that
Okay.
she responded to.
I'll hold for it.
No, we can do that now, and then hold off on the agriculture. First was, she said you cannot change the Board of Appeal notice process, it's right in the state law, so that, I've told that already. She says you need to drop any design requirements on accessory dwelling units. We had tried to keep some in there based on the earlier town meeting process, but she does not feel comfortable with having any design standard apply to accessory dwelling units that does not apply to all single-family dwellings. And so that is something you should consider. I've pretty much prepared a draft that drops the requirement that you can't have an outside stairway or, you know, that could go either way if it were ever challenged, but she feels more comfortable not having that in there, where the state law talks about not putting design issues on accessory dwelling units.
Aesthetic design, not
Yeah.
like site plan stuff, right?
Yeah, she's saying you can't do that unless you do it for all single-family dwellings. Okay,
So you're gonna
marijuana,
put that out,
I-
here's what I've deleted based on the attorney.
it's off the website now.
Okay.
The marijuana, she had sent me, referred me to Vassalboro's ordinance on marijuana, and they did not opt in. But to close the loophole, they adopted an entire ordinance, and it basically grandfathers in any of these personal cooperative growth areas, growth facilities, and requires them to go through site plan review, and it prohibits all new ones. But for the ones that do exist, they have to go through site plan review, they have to meet all the standards of regular facilities, and they have to have annual inspections by the code officer. I think that's really overkill for what we're trying to deal with. And so what I've asked her, I've sent her a definition that I think covers it, and just asked her if it's okay to just prohibit it in all districts and be done with it, and not get into trying to permit the ones that may or may not exist, and have an entire set of ordinance provisions to regulate something that is not gonna really happen.
Is that would you call that a minor policy? Like, we have the marijuana.
Yeah, the minor policy would just be to add the prohibition, because the town opted out.
Right, so it would just be adding to the number 6, right?
It'll be adding a definition of what one of these potential loophole facilities is and saying they're not allowed.
Right, I guess I'm saying, we already had the marijuana small policy change discussion,
Yes.
right? You guys talked about that in the meeting last time. There was a
Yes.
little bit of discussion.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that there's more information from our legal person that we might wanna add to
Okay,
this, right?
So how this all came about was back in April. The staff all met with the town attorney and went over these policy issues. And she added, because with the BESS project, there was question about whether or not there was a facility in that area that had several greenhouses, and we were told they were leasing out space for marijuana. We never confirmed that, but based on that, the town attorney said there is a loophole in the state law. And so she advised, because they had done it in Vassalboro, which she apparently serves her firm. And so they adopted an ordinance to close that loophole. And as I said, what it did was it grandfathered in the existing, because you can't do a post, once they're in, they're in. And it set up site plan review process for them and annual inspections and permitting. And we don't even know if we have one in Durham. So it's kind of a different situation, and I think theirs prevents any future ones from coming. Their whole ordinance is to deal with existing ones. We don't know if we have any existing ones, and it just seems to me that if the town ever got into an enforcement, and this is what I've asked her, if the town ever did get into an enforcement, since marijuana was legalized in Maine, Durham has always had conditional use requirements for any non-residential. So they didn't come for, if it's operating as a business, they didn't come for conditional use review. And so the town could basically, if it did an enforcement action, say, you need a conditional use review permit for this existing facility, because it never went before the planning board, and then use the conditional use criteria to deal with whatever you want to deal with, as opposed to adopting the entire ordinance with everything that's in the Vassalboro one. So I sent that email to her Monday, I think it was, and waiting for a response. So I just wanted to give you that update. We're still trying to figure out the easiest way to do that.
And on those, it's up to you guys, but I would recommend having that discussion in public till you've had it internally about marijuana, if there's other things here that, because I think marijuana, may seem minor, but it could be major.
And all we're dealing with is that loophole.
Yeah, and I just think that you're better off discussing, and then doing the public information meeting down the road, and, at the end of one of your regular meetings.
Well, there'll be more in the spring. There'll be more public meetings.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of on the previous thing that we were just talking about, noise, like, I would be okay pushing this one as well, if we wanted to. I understand, like why we're talking about it, but, I could go either way there, so.
Yeah, and it's an option you can consider.
Does she think that would be?
Let's wait and see what she says.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of adding a definition and putting it as a prohibited use through the tables.
Yeah.
It's easy.
When do we know if there's an existing facility based on whether or not they needed a state permit to operate?
Well, that's what the town attorney said, they wouldn't need a state permit.
So for this is personal medicinal use, less than whatever it is, 5 plants and all that other stuff.
Yeah, no greenhouse, everyone put their plants in my greenhouse.
Yeah.
That's your plants, those are your plants, those are your plants.
Okay, George, you kind of 2 ways to go there, I think.
Let me just see if I get all of hers. Also, you remember currently you have a set of instructions for conditional use permit applicants. The planning board did that in 2020 because it was concerned that you weren't getting detailed information submitted by applicants, and there was real frustration on everybody's part. So former chair Antor Grossa wrote out basically a 10-page set of instructions. Very detailed, here's what we want for site plan, here's what, you know, you have to submit for this, that, and the other. This is all the information the planning board needs to make a decision, informed decision on whether you meet the conditional use criteria. Problem is, it's questionable whether the board can do that by just voting outside of the ordinance. So the town attorney has suggested, after consulting with her about this issue, you need to take what's in the instructions, which is just an information sheet, and putting it into the ordinance. So what you see posted on the website is basically taking what's in those instructions and putting the site plan statements of information needed into the ordinance, just like you have for site plan review and subdivision. So that's how that came about. First, we started with a legal opinion on, does the planning board, can it require this legally of applicants? And the answer is no, unless it's in the ordinance.
Got it.
So that was that one, and then finally, you've already decided on noise, so that doesn't, you don't need that one.
That one is funded.
So the last thing is agriculture. Yep,
Sorry, wasn't there one about abutters? And notifying the abutters? I thought there was something in there about.
yeah, in her comments on the conditional use permit, she's suggesting the town has historically put that on applicants. She thinks it really should be placed on the town, with the applicants doing two things. Providing a list of abutters to be notified, which the town can check for accuracy, and paying for the cost of the mailings, which they have to do anyway. So she recommended that be added as well, so we can do that. But we would have to do it for across the board, basically, not just conditional use permits.
Are you advocating for that?
I'm not advocating for it,
Okay.
she's recommending it, it's a better practice than, and you know, Durham has limited staff, and I think that's probably the basis on which they put it on applicants before.
Has Jerry or anybody weighed in on the staff's ability to do it?
It's a concern.
I mean, I once worked till 3 a.m, or, filling out 200+ certified mailing envelopes, because we didn't have a secretary. So it is we don't have that kind of neighborhoods, but it is a very painful, then you have process. So I guess if Jerry thinks the staff can do
Yeah, I
it.
think her concerns are twofold, is it, the ordinance and the law typically say town shall notify. So if the town requires the applicant to do it, and then the other issue is, do they really get them all? And there's usually better reliability if the town is doing it versus applicants. So those are the reasons why most towns have the staff do it.
And we'd still be doing it,
Applicants pay for it.
we'd still be doing it, because they would just be submitting the list.
Yeah, but they're doing it now, they're submitting the list and doing the mailings.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, but there's a back check there as well, right? Like when they come back, somebody's gotta confirm that the appropriate abutters were actually notified.
Again, our limited staff, it's hard to do everything we need to do within a 2-week timeframe.
Okay.
So, in the recent case, it didn't get checked.
Yeah,
Whereas if,
I think it's important.
whereas if we add 3 weeks, or extend it to 3 weeks, give, staff has a clear responsibility to do it.
Now, I think that a lot of onus on that needs to be on the developer, the owner of the property. I agree with them providing the town with the list of the
Yeah.
buyers and putting out the mailings, but somebody in the town's gotta confirm that the appropriate buyers were actually notified.
So what are we recommending?
It's up to you, do you want to pursue that in addition to the checklist? You don't have to do that. Checklist you do have to do if you're gonna require it. You could leave it for now, the abutters still have to do it, she's recommending not.
When do we require, I guess the issue really comes down to certified mailing is a major effort.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen anybody, as the town gets bigger and there's more subdivisions, that'll be, you know, a bigger issue. I guess my feeling is if Jerry, does Jerry think that the staff can handle it? Because I think it's a whole lot easier to, you know, check, yeah, that guy got this green card, I get, because the only thing they need is the actual post office stamped green card. They don't have to have it mailed in the right time frame, which is a whole lot easier than,
But really what happens is developers, like those folks, it'll be submitted. They'll check all the abutters, they will bring the green cards, it'll be part of the submission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Individual, small mechanic, home-based business, conditional use, probably not. Because they, they're just not used to doing that. Those professional consultants
Oh, we
are
should-
used to doing it.
We should, require the applicants to do it and put it in their ordinance.
It's already in the ordinance, it's already in the ordinance.
Well then,
Specifically
okay, so the
the
only change
subdivisions.
is that the.
She's advocating shifting the responsibility from the
Oh, okay.
applicants to the town staff.
Just to notify the abutters.
Yes.
Yes, but the list of abutters.
Make them get the
comes from
list.
the-
Yeah, they submit the list, you do the mailings, and
Yeah,
you
no.
charge them.
does that help you any with accuracy? Because I don't think our GIS does it, but a lot of the, the more sophisticated GIS, you give it an address, you tell, I
This
need the
one
butters
can
within
do it.
250 feet.
Yeah,
and
this
they-
one can do it, but again, we don't have staff trained to do it and geared to do it.
I mean, I'm good with having the developer do it, but I think they need to submit a list based upon
Yeah.
that, rather than, I don't think he's there anymore, or he sold it to
Right.
the other guy, which is kind of somewhat what we're getting. And the other thing is even the little guy, the mechanic, the container, waste container guy, that can be as onerous to neighbors as, a subdivision. So,
Yeah, no, and I don't wanna put the town in a position where they missed an abutter. It's gotta be found out.
is that the consensus?
So leave it for now.
And I don't know if we give them better instructions on how to get the list or.
We leave it for now, but what about the check? Weren't we talking about like the town checks,
Yeah, we can just do that.
right? Don't we all agree that that's important to
Yeah.
make sure that, okay.
Yep.
All right, agriculture.
Okay, yeah, so the agriculture committee's been working on this for a couple of years now. They were working with the Maine Farmland Trust. They're concerned that, and it's true, Durham's definitions of agriculture are 40 years behind contemporary agricultural practices. So they have, working with the Maine Farmland Trust, submitted a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 definitions. Currently, I think there's 3 or 4 at most related to agriculture. And so they are saying they would like these added to the ordinance. I pointed out to them, well, if you just add those to the ordinance, that doesn't really fully change anything, because the definitions are the definitions, but then you have, where are those different uses gonna be allowed, in what districts? They're gonna be a permitted use, conditional use, and then what standards are going to apply to them, because the current standards basically control manure storage and spreading and those sorts of things. This is getting into agritourism events like Pineland and other things like that.
Yeah.
So we just asked them, what about the rest of it? Because we can't just do the definitions without the rest of it. So they're processing that.
I would agree that it's very important to get everyone on the same page regarding these definitions, including myself, but it's almost a little premature maybe to publish these
There's a
without having.
need, there is a definite need for change,
For sure.
updating, but
Yeah.
there's more work to it than just adding.
Yeah, because I think we get way more questions than we would answers right now.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would caution us, to take a look at what they're saying in there, because they basically, for agricultural residential units, they don't have to be, you know, they have to be building code and OSHA standards, but it doesn't count as living areas for density and a whole bunch of other things, and that question is that what the town wants?
Yeah, I agree, John, that last definition there was like, wait a minute.
Yep.
What are you doing there?
And so I think that's, and you know, if agritourism sounds good, but is it a huge fair? Is it, you know, Celebration has music and other things that we, the planning board said, okay, you can do that, but here's your limits on time and noise and human manure and some of these other things that could be onerous. I think driving by it all the time, I think they've done a good job of it. But who's next, you know, so that's why I think they need to come in
And I think they may come in next Wednesday to participate in the public information meeting. They're
I
meeting
think that's
tonight.
good.
They're meeting tonight.
I think, I would say, hey, we're not ready there to really, these are not the same as some of these other things that we're looking at, that we've already, you have all spent a lot of time looking at. Then I'll come in with, here's a whole bunch of new rules. I think that needs to be beat over
100%.
and checked, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything else on
I'm
agriculture?
glad they're doing it though, I've just gotta say,
Yeah,
I'm
no, I-
really glad we're looking at this. But on that note, so our next meeting's sorry, you just said, what is
12th. The week from, well,
Oh, yeah, the public
the
meeting is
public
12.
meeting is next Wednesday, right, the 12th? I keep getting that day wrong, but 6:30 right here at the fire station. So all done with that stuff? George, anything else? Nope. Then the last thing on the agenda is election of the chair. Are you all ready to do that?
Should we hear from members, like, is anyone interested in being a chair? Anyone?
I remind you that at 3:30 tomorrow I can't be the chair, so.
Well, what if we don't have a chair?
Well, then the deputy chair has to step to the plate and hold the meeting on the 12th. But I would like it, you know, you're all qualified. I mean, you're all, and it is a little bit more work. For those of you who do get a stipend, it is a pay raise. It's an extra $50 a month. So,
Is anyone interested in being a chair?
I would be interested, however,
Oh,
I nominate
It would be interesting.
Alan,
wait, hold on, but you're interested?
yeah.
and is Alan, I'm gonna kind of let you guys argue with this.
I have been a chair on the budget committee, and I was probably for 20 years. And things have totally changed. And when I was doing that, I organized everything. And it was just coordinated everything with the town office. That's all changed now.
Yes.
And thank goodness George is here. And both Brian and I have been on this committee, and Juliet has too, when we did not have the support of a planner like we do today. And it was
It's a different.
challenging as the dickens.
I came in,
George.
yeah, as George was moving into that role, and I will say, at the risk of giving a small head, he is superb, as you guys know, superb to work with him, and it is well prepared, so. It would be what Ann did was above and beyond the call of duty, but she did not have somebody, so.
And she was, a lot of stuff was done during meetings.
Right, while we were
You
sitting
know,
there.
the whole thing behind this, I've done that, been there, and from what Brian and I have had some discussion, but he just said that he would be interested in it, and I think he is more interested in it than I am.
Can I make do I say motion? Do I make-
Nominate.
Nominate, can I nominate Brian?
I heard you nominated.
I know, but like,
Yeah, we have to,
like, I don't wanna, like, I feel like
he has to
Alan,
withdraw his motion, or we
Okay.
have to take it to a vote.
I feel like Alan, you might be like, you know, you're gonna do it, you would do it, you know, someone needs to do it in a way, but maybe Brian wants more to do it. Is that kind of what you're thinking too?
It is, I've been thinking about it and certainly that Brian certainly has the demeanor to do it, I think I have to. I don't have a passion for it. I used to have a passion for it. When I was on budget committee for all those years, I had a very passion for it, because I controlled meetings. They had to be controlled, because people would come in and they were not prepared. And nothing's
And they were
worse,
writable.
and that's totally different than this
Yeah, it
group,
is.
totally different.
Okay, so with that being said, do
We
you
had-
wanna take away your
Withdraw,
motion? Yeah, withdraw your motion.
we can take it to a
On
vote.
nomination.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
I know, you just told me you had an interest in it, so you have more of an interest than I do.
Well, we have to do something with the motion. I mean, I'm not a big
I
Roberts.
will withdraw my motion to nominate Alan.
And I will nominate Brian Lenoir
If we have,
to be chair.
motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It will take 3. And I feel comfortable voting on this, so, and then that'll be my last vote.
Would you vote for yourself?
I'm
Do you
sorry.
want this?
Yeah,
Well, he said he had an interest.
yeah, I'm gonna vote for him. All right,
And-
ready?
And it does, and as John has said, and it takes more efforts in your coordinating things, and you're prepared for a meeting when you come in, and you've certainly you will work with the planner more closely, and you're just directing, you're coordinating the meeting. It's basically what it is.
No, John and I had a conversation earlier today. I think I understand what the added duties would be. I'm willing to give it a shot. And as you, getting back to your earlier comments, there's a lot of support.
There is.
Yeah.
And
That's key,
With-
that
with,
is key.
with George and then the 4 of you. And there's always the opportunity to run for select board and not be able
Get out,
to, not be able to serve, so I'm saying that's the reason I ran.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
for
is
select
like
board.
Cleveland police.
So are you saying we drove you out?
No, I tell you, I'm business, I mean, you guys have, well, let's get the vote done before
Yeah.
Brian changes his mind. So I have,
You're up,
I have a motion, I have a second, all in favor of Brian becoming the chair, please raise a hand. And it is unanimous, you wanna vote no or just abstain? He raised his hand, so 5-0, George, and congratulations,
Thank you.
and thank you for doing, you guys, it's gonna be a good,
I'm so glad.
it'll be a good tough year, I mean, there's lots, 8 months from now, there's a comp plan, or potentially a comp plan to work on, so. I will be there if you have any questions, but I will not interfere, so, I'm getting out of here.
He'll be sitting in the audience.
I will be here on the 12th,
Did you have a motion to adjourn?
Well,
What's
hold on, can we just say, I wanna say thank you to John
Thank you.
for leading us for what, 2?
To be, let's see, 21 to be just short of 3 years as
Wow.
chair.
Okay, almost 3
Yeah,
years.
4.5, I think, or whatever, 3.5, whatever it is. I joined, I think June of 21, so, and then, Alan and Ann came up and said, oh, this is easy, why don't you do it? And it was because of you folks and the folks who preceded you and George, it has been easy and fun.
Well,
And
thank you, John, good
it's,
luck.
it's a
Your
whole
new
lot better,
venture.
well, thank you, and I'm always there, a whole lot better than solid waste. that's
I'll
for
make
sure.
a motion to,
Oh,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second, well, it's moved second, well, wait, it's up to you now. I am no longer the chair.
all in favor?
All in favor, there we go. Thank you all. George, thank you. Have you done 4?
No,
Whenever I hear passion.
You know, there's just me.
I know.
Brian, you didn't tell me